Jack, a 25-year-old from New York, wakes up in a luxurious penthouse, marble floors, city lights glittering outside, and a mirror reflecting a handsome face that's not his. Confused, he finds a phone filled with messages addressed to Jackson Gray, the cold-hearted CEO of Gray Enterprises, a name he remembers from the novel he had just finished reading last night. The twist, he's not just reading anymore, he's inside the novel. A knock interrupts his thoughts. A woman walks in, Emily Ross, the novel's heroine, the one who's supposed to fall in love with the cruel CEO who destroys her father's company. Jack gulps. He knows every plot twist, every heartbreak she's about to suffer. And now, he's the man destined to cause them. But Jack makes a silent vow. Not this time, I'll change the story. Jack studies the events to come in this world. Jackson Gray was infamous for his ruthless business deals and heartless manipulation. The original plot: he'd ruin Emily's family company, leaving her homeless and broken, before falling for her too late. But Jack had no interest in playing the villain. He decided to rewrite fate. That morning during a board meeting, everyone expected the usual cold, calculated CEO. Instead, Jack smiled. "I've decided to review our partnerships," he said calmly. "No unnecessary acquisitions for now." The directors exchanged shocked glances. "Sir, are you feeling well?" one whispered. Later that day, he found Emily working late, organizing documents she shouldn't have been handling alone. He offered to help. She blinked, startled. "The CEO helping me?" Jack grinned. "Let's just say I'm not always the villain people think I am." In that small, unexpected moment, the story began to shift. And Jack felt something the original Jackson never did: warmth. The next morning, Jack found himself waiting in the elevator, half lost in thought when Emily stepped in. She looked tired but smiled politely. In the novel, this moment had been cold. Jackson ignored her completely. But Jack turned, smiled gently, and said, "Rough morning." Her eyes widened in surprise. "You talk now." He chuckled. "Guess I'm full of surprises lately." As they stepped out, he noticed a loose file slip from her arms, papers scattered across the polished floor. Without hesitation, Jack bent down to help. Emily froze. The CEO of Gray Enterprises kneeling to pick up her documents. That wasn't supposed to happen. "Careful," he said softly. "You'll wear yourself out if you keep doing everyone's work." Her heart skipped. This wasn't the man she'd been warned about. That night, Jack opened the novel's ebook on his phone. It was still updating itself. But now the lines describing the CEO's cruel indifference were vanishing. New text formed instead. The CEO smiled for the first time, not out of arrogance, but out of something dangerously close to kindness. Jack smiled back. "Guess I'm rewriting you too, Emily." The office buzzed with rumors. The CEO had changed. Jack's easy smiles, his calm tone, even his habit of holding the elevator for others, none of it fit the ruthless man they knew. That afternoon, as Emily worked through a pile of reports, Jack approached her desk. "Emily, join me for dinner tonight." Her pen froze. "Dinner, as in business dinner?" Jack grinned. "As in food, conversation, and maybe laughter if you're up for it." She hesitated. In the novel, Jackson invited her out only to humiliate her in front of his elite friends, but this version of him felt different. "All right," she said softly, "but only if you promise not to make me regret it." That night the restaurant glowed under golden lights. Jack listened more than he spoke, genuinely curious about her dreams, becoming a designer, traveling to Italy, finding meaning beyond corporate walls. "You know," he said, "you sound like someone who doesn't belong in a cage." She laughed quietly. "Neither do you, Mr. Gray." For a moment, everything stilled. No boardrooms, no scripted lines, just two souls escaping the story they were written into. And as he looked at her across the candlelight, Jack realized This was the first time the story felt real. The next morning, Jack woke to sunlight spilling over his penthouse windows, a strange peace in his chest. For the first time since transmigrating, he didn't feel trapped inside someone else's life. At the office, Emily entered his office hesitantly, holding a folder. "I finished the market analysis you requested," she said, avoiding his eyes. Jack took it but didn't open it right away. "Emily," he said gently, "you don't have to work yourself to exhaustion to prove your worth here." She blinked in surprise. That's not something the old Mr. Gray would have said. He smiled faintly. "Maybe I'm learning to be someone new." Later that day, Jack received a call from Daniel Cross, his rival CEO and the man who, in the original story, manipulated Emily's downfall. "Jackson's still running your company with your heart now," Daniel sneered. Jack chuckled, "Better than running it with poison." He hung up before Daniel could reply. But deep down he knew the more he changed the story, the more resistance he'd face. Still, when Emily smiled at him later that evening, gratitude shining in her eyes, Jack felt a quiet certainty. If fate had written him as the villain, he'd simply become the hero instead. The next week brought chaos. Rumors spread that Jack's new leadership style was too soft. Investors were nervous, and board members whispered that he was losing his edge. During a tense meeting, one director slammed his fist on the table. "Mr. Gray, your emotional approach will destroy this company." Jack leaned back calmly. "Emotions built this company, loyalty, trust, and belief. Maybe it's time we remember that." The room fell silent. That wasn't the ruthless Jackson Gray they feared. It was someone they didn't know how to handle. After the meeting, Emily found him alone on the rooftop terrace. The sky burned orange with sunset, reflecting in his troubled eyes. "You're fighting the world," she said softly. "You don't have to do it alone." Jack turned to her. "If I told you I wasn't supposed to be here, that I don't belong in this story, would you believe me?" She smiled gently. "You're here now, that's all that matters." Something inside him shifted. For the first time since waking up in this world, Jack didn't feel like an outsider. Emily's presence grounded him, a reminder that maybe fate hadn't trapped him, maybe it had given him a second chance. And as thunder rolled in the distance, Jack made a silent vow. No matter what this world threw at him, he'd protect her, even if it meant rewriting every page. The storm didn't stay in the sky. It came crashing into Jack's office the next morning. Daniel Cross, his rival, arrived uninvited with a smirk and a thin folder in hand. "I heard Gray Enterprises is turning into a charity under your new management," Daniel said, tossing the folder on Jack's desk. "Thought I'd help you speed up your fall." Inside were photos of Emily's father, the same man whose company was supposed to go bankrupt in the novel. Only this time, Daniel was the one trying to destroy him, not Jack. Jack clenched his jaw. The story was shifting faster than he could predict. "What's your game, Daniel?" "The same as always," Daniel said with a grin. "Winning." After he left, Jack sat in silence. He wasn't following the novel's script anymore, and the world was rewriting itself in response. That evening, Emily appeared at his door, her usual brightness dimmed. "My father's company, it's under attack," she said quietly. "Someone's manipulating the stocks." Jack stood, eyes firm. "Then we fight back together." Emily looked up, hope flickering through her tears. "You do that for me." He stepped closer, his voice low and sincere. "I'd do anything to protect you." And as the city lights flickered behind them, Jack realized this wasn't just about rewriting a novel anymore. He was rewriting his heart. The next day, Jack called an emergency strategy meeting, not as the cold CEO everyone remembered, but as a leader with fire in his eyes. "Gray Enterprises will acquire Ross Holdings," he announced. The board erupted. "That company's sinking," one investor shouted. Jack's voice cut through the noise. Not if I pull it out myself. In the novel, this merger was meant to destroy Emily's family. But this time, it would save them. Emily's father, Mr. Ross, met Jack privately later that day. I don't understand, he said cautiously. You gain nothing from helping us. Jack smiled faintly. Maybe I'm tired of being the villain in someone else's story. When Emily heard the news, she ran to his office, her voice trembling. You saved my family. Jack turned, soft warmth in his gaze. I just corrected a bad plot twist. She laughed, really laughed, for the first time since he met her. And in that laughter, Jack felt something powerful, not just affection but freedom. That night, as he stared out over the glittering city, the novel's digital text appeared again on his phone. The story is changing. New chapter unlocked, love in defiance of fate. Jack grinned, bring it on. Days turned into weeks, and the partnership between Gray Enterprises and Ross Holdings flourished. For the first time, both companies and both hearts were thriving. But change never comes without enemies. Daniel Cross watched from the shadows, furious. He was supposed to ruin her, not rescue her, he muttered, staring at a picture of Jack and Emily smiling at a charity event. Meanwhile, Jack found himself falling deeper into emotions he couldn't control. Every time Emily entered a room, it was as if the world dimmed just to highlight her presence. She wasn't just the novel's heroine anymore. She was his reason to stay. One evening, after a long day of negotiations, Emily showed up at his office with takeout boxes. You've been skipping meals again, she said, placing one on his desk. Jack smirked. Are you always this caring to your boss? She met his gaze. Only the ones who forget to care for themselves. They ate in comfortable silence, the city lights painting them in soft gold. Then Emily asked the question that made Jack's heart still. Do you ever feel like you were meant to be someone else, but chose to be better instead? He stared at her, amazed. Maybe she couldn't sense it, but in that moment it felt as though the story itself was acknowledging his fight to change. Jack reached across the desk, brushing his fingers against hers. I think I was meant to meet you, Emily. Everything else was just the prologue. Jack woke up one night in a cold sweat. His phone screen flickered beside him, not with notifications, but with glowing words forming across it. Warning, the story is diverging. Corrections will be made. He frowned. Corrections. Suddenly, scenes from the original novel flashed in his mind. Emily crying on a rainy street, Daniel triumphing, and the CEO losing everything. It was as if the world itself was trying to pull him back to the original tragedy. At the office the next day, his fears came true. The media exploded with headlines. Gray Enterprises under investigation for fraud. Fabricated evidence, planted documents, Daniel's doing, but it was working. Jack's board panicked. The investors began to flee. Through it all, Emily stayed. I know this isn't you, she said firmly. We'll clear your name. He stared at her, this woman who believed in him even when the world didn't. Emily, he said quietly, if everything falls apart, promise me you won't regret standing with me. She smiled through her tears. I'd rather lose the world with you than win it without you. That night, as they stood on the rooftop under a sky heavy with rain, Jack whispered, if fate wants a fight, then fate will get one. Lightning flashed, illuminating them, two souls refusing to bow to destiny. And somewhere beyond the fabric of the story, a narrator's voice trembled. This wasn't supposed to happen. The next morning, Gray Enterprises felt like a battlefield. Lawsuits, rumors, and manipulated stock reports swirled around Jack like a storm. Daniel Cross was relentless, determined to force the story back to its original course. Jack, however, refused to be coerced. He worked tirelessly, analyzing evidence, contacting loyal allies and using every ounce of wit and knowledge from his memories of the novel. Emily stayed by his side, standing firm in meetings, speaking to the media, and even defending him in front of skeptical investors. "You're not the villain," she told him softly during a quiet moment. "You never were, you just needed to find yourself." Her faith strengthened him. Jack realized something profound. The original Jackson Gray may have been heartless, but he didn't have Emily. That evening, after another exhausting day, Jack finally sat down with her in the penthouse. "Daniel wants me to fail," Jack admitted, "but he doesn't understand one thing." "What's that?" Emily asked, tilting her head. Jack smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I've already won because I have you." For the first time, he felt invincible, not because of wealth, power, or knowledge of the novel's plot, but because someone he truly loved believed in him. As city lights shimmered around them, the narrative of the novel faltered, struggling against this new, unplanned chapter of love, loyalty, and defiance. And Jack knew one thing for certain. This was a story he would win, no matter what the original author intended. The tension between Jack and Emily had been quietly building for weeks, but neither dared cross the invisible line until one rainy evening. They were working late, reviewing documents for the lawsuit Daniel had orchestrated. The office was empty, and the only sound was the soft patter of rain against the windows. Emily looked up, her eyes searching his. "Jack, why do you fight so hard? You could just walk away, disappear into another life." Jack's hand paused over the papers. He took a deep breath. "Because I can't, not when it comes to you." Emily's heart skipped. "Me." Jack stood and closed the distance between them. "I know I wasn't supposed to be here in this world, in this story, but since the moment I woke up in it, you've been the only thing that feels real. Emily, I love you." Her eyes widened, tears welling. "Jack, He gently took her hands in his. "You don't have to say it back. Just know that no matter what happens, I'll protect you, even if the world tries to rewrite us." For the first time, the story itself seemed to pause, as if the universe held its breath. Emily, trembling but resolute, whispered, "I love you too." Lightning flashed outside, illuminating them in silver light, two hearts entwined against destiny itself. And somewhere the novel's narrator muttered, almost in disbelief, "The script has been broken." The following week, Daniel Cross escalated his attacks. Threats, sabotage, and public smear campaigns were launched at Gray Enterprises. The media frenzy made it seem like Jack's empire was crumbling. But Jack and Emily stood united. Every move Daniel made, they countered with precision. Every lie he spread, they revealed the truth. Finally, Daniel appeared at Gray Enterprises' headquarters, storming into Jack's office with fury. "You think you can rewrite fate, Gray? You're nothing but a puppet of circumstance," he yelled. Jack stood calm but unyielding. "I'm no puppet, and this time I write my own story." Emily stepped forward, her voice steady. "And we do it together." Daniel laughed, shaking his head. "You'll lose everything." Jack smiled, holding Emily's hand. "Maybe in your version, but in ours, we win because we refuse to follow the old script." The confrontation ended not with violence, but with strategy. Daniel's schemes were exposed. Investors regained confidence, and his own company suffered setbacks from his overreach. For the first time, Jack realized something profound. Love and trust were stronger than fear and manipulation. That night, he and Emily stood on the rooftop, the city lights shimmering below. Jack whispered, "We changed the story together." Emily rested her head on his shoulder. "And it's our story now." With Daniel Cross defeated and Gray Enterprises stabilized, Jack finally had a moment to breathe. The office that had once felt like a cage now felt like home, especially with Emily by his side. They walked through the rooftop garden, the city sparkling around them. Emily paused, looking at him with a smile that made Jack's chest tighten. "Jack, what now?" she asked softly. He chuckled. "Now we write the rest ourselves. No scripts, no villains, no pre-written endings, just us." Emily laughed, leaning into him. "I like the sound of that." That evening, Jack returned to his penthouse, scrolling through the digital pages of the novel he had originally inhabited. The text had changed completely. The CEO, once heartless, found love, courage, and a chance to rewrite his destiny. Together with Emily, they faced the storms of life and emerged stronger, happier, and free from fate's cruel hand. Jack smiled, knowing one thing for certain. He hadn't just changed the story, he had changed himself. And for the first time, he felt entirely at peace. As he looked out over the city, Emily joining him with a gentle touch, he whispered, "Here, to future we'll write, page by page together." The city lights flickered like stars, and the story was theirs. The weeks that followed were peaceful, a rare calm after the storm. Gray Enterprises thrived under Jack's leadership, and Emily's family business regained its stability. But more importantly, Jack and Emily thrived together, building a bond that wasn't dictated by fate or a novel's plot. One sunny afternoon, Jack led Emily to the rooftop garden, now filled with blooming flowers and soft benches. The city spread endlessly below, golden in the late afternoon sun. Jack turned to her, holding a small, elegantly wrapped box. "Emily," he said, his voice steady but full of emotion, "we've rewritten a story that was never meant to be ours. But I don't want to stop here. I want a life with you, a future we create together." Emily gasped softly as he opened the box, revealing a delicate ring that sparkled in the sunlight. "Jack," she whispered, tears welling. He slipped it onto her finger. "Will you marry me?" For a moment time seemed to pause. Then Emily threw her arms around him, laughter and tears mingling. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." The city below them shimmered like a promise, the novel's last line finally written by their own hands. And so, the CEO who once followed a cruel script found love, happiness, and freedom. And together, they lived a story only they could tell. Jack held Emily close, feeling the warmth of her heart against his. For the first time, he realized that the happiest endings weren't found in novels, they were lived. The skyline glowed as the sun set, painting their world in gold, a perfect beginning to the rest of their lives. The end.